I'm joined on the Crispin Flintoff show by Professor Steve Hall, who's the co-author of Death of the Left. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm warm enough to do this. It's freezing out there, but the thing that's really kind of struck me this last day or two is this idea that they're trying to bring down Starmer, and it's not any of us lot that's trying to do it. As this Financial Times headline suggests, Musk examines how to oust Starmer as UK Prime Minister before the next general election, and then this story about UK government seeks to soothe bond market nerves after borrowing costs soar, and you can see a graph there of the pound hits its lowest level since 2023. Would you be able to give us a background on what's going on here?
Let me say something quite controversial, is that the bond market is entirely unnecessary. It's not necessary for the government to sell bonds at all. And what it is a cozy arrangement between the central banks and private bankers and governments. The idea is to give private bankers, rich people, rich individuals, corporations, and pension funds, insurance funds, a safe savings account for the money, the reserve money that they have available. So they don't have to risk their money on risky investments like industry and manufacturing and things that can go wrong. And so 1694, the government started to issue bonds. And basically, it's an old pals act, and it's something that goes back to an older age of the gold standard, and this idea that a government can't spend any more than its gold reserves are worth. Now, we left the gold standard in the early 1970s. We now operate a fiat money system whereby we can print as much money as we want up to the level of inflation. So we're not limited by gold. So the government doesn't have to find extra money from private sources to fund whatever it wants. It can actually print that money up to the level of inflation. It can't print willy-nilly without any restraint. So the bond market is actually a relic to a former age, which was governed by the gold standard.
Wow. So how can that have such a bearing on the economy that this bond market? I mean, if they're saying it can get rid of trust, or maybe did get rid of trust, how can that happen?
Well, they can get rid of anyone they want. And this is a complex story, we have to put this in sort of context. What happens, let's go down to basic. What happens is that the City of London right now are selling off their bonds. Now, that means that in order for you to, entice them to buy them back and to buy more bonds, you have to give them more money. So you have to jack up the interest rates. So it's this sort of, attracting a mouse out of the out of the wall with cheese in the trap. So jack up interest rates, it causes all sorts of problems that can lead to recession. It makes borrowing more expensive. It reduces effective demand and aggregate demand because people have less money to spend because they're paying more money on their mortgages, on interest and credit cards, etc. So it weakens the economy. It sucks money out of circulation. Borrowing's more risky. That means you have cuts. The government is forced to make cuts. That means you have less tax. That means it makes recession worse, which means more cuts, less tax. So you get involved in a sort of downward spiral.
So these bond dealers, traders, right? Why are they gambling with their bonds in order to undermine Starmer? That seems to be a story that's been put out, or before. Why did they use their bonds to undermine trust? What's their agenda for doing that?
Is to get the government they want. The government they want at the moment is the one that is entirely subservient to global private equity. It doesn't want a government that has any power over the economy. This is why it demonizes China and Russia.
But Starmer's not a kind of interventionist economist. He doesn't
No.
want to change into public ownership and all it and all this stuff. Truss as well was a free market economist. So why would they be kind of trying to unsettle these people who I would have thought would be on their side?
Musk and his friends in Wall Street think that a Tory reform alliance is going to be a much better, safer, a better bet than the Labour Party. I don't think the Labour Party has been deregulating fast enough for these private equity vultures. Private equity wants to get its claws into this country. It's got its claws everywhere. If you look at BlackRock and Vanguard, they're investing money everywhere. They want to privatize every damn thing in this
Right.
country because that's all they can do. Their industry's not making enough profits. Their derivatives market collapsed. The East is now taking control of its own economies. They've got nowhere left for this capital. So they must privatize everything. I don't think the Labour Party is privatizing fast enough.
But I mean, you saw that today there's a story with Rachel Reeves doing a deal with China. I mean, that wouldn't go down well
Not
with
going
them.
down well at all. No. The
So do you
Labour
think
Party,
someone like Musk has enough capital and enough influence with
no,
other people to
no,
actually do this on
no.
his own, or what?
Let's cut to the chase here. The City of London, Wall Street, in the Anglo-American world, they call the shots. They are running our economies. They're running our politics. They're running our governments. There's no doubt about that. So the governments they must play their game. And if they don't, they'll put pressure on governments and they'll get rid of them very, very easily.
Do you think they can get rid of Starmer?
Oh, yes. Yes, I think Starmer would be gone. I think the Labour Party would be gone the next election. And they'll bring in Tory Reform Alliance to do their bidding a bit faster, a bit more widespread. They'll deregulate and privatise. The health service will be gone. The education services will be fully privatised. The water services won't be nationalised. All these promises of nationalisation are simply they're not. There'll be no fulfilment in that direction. And it's no conspiracy. It's open. They're just a set of actors. Everyone, when you talk about this, everyone says, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist." There's neoliberals sitting in a room and planning. No, they're just actors who know the game. They know how to play the game, and they play it. The rules are unwritten, and the rules are just known by everyone. They have one, like I say, they have one purpose, and that is to invest their money for high returns and accumulate capital and accumulate more money and keep on investing it. That's how the system works. It's the basis of the capitalist system. And if you stand in their way, suppose you nationalized something like a $25 billion per annum oil industry. And suppose you set up a central bank and suppose you defy the petrodollar and start to threaten dollar domination, what would happen to you? Who did that in 2009? It was Muammar Gaddafi. 2 years later, they blew his country to bits. Now, if they're willing to blow a country to bits, they're certainly willing to mess around with the bond market and cause an awful lot of problems. And the problem is people believe them because we've been fed on a diet of neoclassical economics since 1979. Before that, I mean, it was quite influential before that. In academia, in mass media, in politics, neoclassical economics rules. It's a fairy story. It's a fairy story with hard sums tacked on to confuse people. It's all rubbish. But people believe it.